I'm Daniel Bongard from ARB. This week I want to show you how easy it is to install a well-designed air locker. In a common four-wheel drive like a Nissan GQ, the front is really no different than the rear. Once you've taken apart the freewheeling hubs and removed the CVs, the third member comes off the back with just a few bolts. With center out now on your workbench, you want to check the backlash that's in your ring and pinion set. That's so you can set it upright when it goes back in. Backing off the adjuster nuts behind the bearings will relieve the bearing tension on the diff and allow the original diff to fall right out of the third member. Be careful, it's oily and slippery. If you plan to reuse the bearings, now's the time you pull them off. But make sure you keep the bearing cups and bearing cones matched up to their originals, as they're not really meant to chop and change. Once the ring gear bolts are removed, the ring gear can be easily dropped off with a few light taps from a plastic or copper mallet. Fitting the ring gear over onto the air locker is easy once it's been warmed up. We would use boiling water or an oven to get the ring gear up to about 120 degrees. So refit the ring gear onto the air locker using the bolt torque specified in your service manual. Press your reused or brand new bearings onto the air locker and you're pretty much ready to go. A hole needs to be drilled through the third member for the bulkhead port so you get air into the differential with. This can be drilled in the location specified in the manual. Tapping this hole out to a 1/4 MPT is how we screw the bulkhead port in and seal it so that oil can't get out. Adjust the backlash so that it matches the amount of backlash you measured off your original diff by rotating the adjuster nuts back and forth. Once you've achieved the right backlash, it's important to set the preload up on the bearings. This amount on an adjuster nut diff, as a rule of thumb, is 1/4 turn of the adjuster nut. But check your factory manual, it might say otherwise. Using a lot of oil, fit the O-rings into the seal housing from the air locker. You can now pop it on the end of the bearing journal with a simple twisting motion. Align the grooves in the seal housing so that it lines up with the adjuster nut and the locking tab on top of the diff. Then you simply hold the seal housing in place by snapping a clip in over top. Fit the locking tab to the bearing cap to keep the seal housing and adjuster nut from rotating on you. Route the copper tube around the differential and out through the bulkhead port simply by bending it with your hand. Make sure there's no tension on the copper tube so the seal housing can float. Trim the copper tube to length if necessary with a simple tubing cutter, then fit the remainder of the bulkhead fitting around an O-ring to lock it to a tight seal. Once the unit's been bench tested with shop air, refitting the whole assembly back to the vehicle is simply a reverse of how you got it out. The next step is finding a suitable location for the compressor and air locker switches and the compressor itself. A well-designed selectable locker coming from a reputable manufacturer is going to come with a detailed installation guide with step-by-step instructions for everything I've just told you. So a do-it-yourselfer with some basic mechanical and automotive experience can easily install an air locker. A good quality selectable locker is one of the best traction aids you could ever possibly add to your vehicle. I'm Daniel Bongard from ARB. I'll see you at the top of the hill.